In the tapestry of tranquil streets that was our suburb, each home was a thread interwoven with the next, creating a community quilt of serenity and sameness. Here, I found my slice of the American dream, a quaint two-story home with Jamie, my partner in all things life. The backdrop of our existence was a chorus of lawnmowers and the occasional laughter of children playing until the streetlights flickered on. Jamie and I had settled into this routine, our lives a comfortable pattern of work, weekend barbecues, and the yearly block party. We were the typical couple next door, our biggest adventure being the selection of annuals for the flower beds. It was on one such uneventful day that I sat on the porch, a mug of coffee warming my hands, as Marlene, my mother-in-law, strutted up the walkway. Her arrival was always announced by the jangle of her bangles and the swish of her colorful maxi dress. "Morning, Ava," Marlene chirped, her voice cutting through the quiet like a knife through butter. "Good morning, Marlene," I greeted her, forcing a smile. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" She settled herself on the swing beside me, her perfume a heady cloud. "Can't a mother visit her son and his lovely wife without an agenda?" she quipped, though her eyes danced with an all-too-familiar mischief. I chuckled, a sound more polite than genuine. "Of course, you're always welcome," I replied. But Marlene's visits were never just social calls, they were scouting missions for gossip or, as I would soon find out, much more. It was during one of these visits that Marlene first laid eyes on the car, the sleek embodiment of Jamie's and my years of scrimping and saving. Her gaze lingered on the shiny curves of the vehicle, a shadow crossing her usually expressive face. $100,000 on 4 wheels. "Must be nice," she said, a note of something I couldn't place in her voice. "It's not just a car, Marlene. It's a dream Jamie and I have had since college," I explained, my own pride swelling as I spoke of our achievement. Marlene hummed, her eyes still fixed on the car. "Dreams? I had a lot of those once." Her words hung between us, laden with a history of unspoken disappointments. I reached out, touching her arm gently. "We're grateful for every bit of it, Marlene. We worked hard for this." She snapped out of her reverie, offering me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Of course, dear. Hard work should be rewarded," she said, rising from the swing. "I'll let you get on with your day. Don't want to keep you from enjoying your reward." As she walked away, the unease settled in the pit of my stomach. There was something in the way she said reward, a bitterness that was uncharacteristic even for her. I watched her leave, the clinking of her bangles fading into the distance, unaware that this was the quiet before the storm, the prelude to an act of rebellion against a lifetime of what she perceived to be injustices. Little did I know, our peaceful suburb was about to become the stage for an unprecedented drama. Marlene was like a storm cloud in a clear sky, her arrival often heralded by a flurry of activity and a palpable tension. She had a laugh that could fill a room and opinions that could clear one just as quickly. Her eccentricities were well known, her demeanor as flamboyant as the peacock feathers she fancied wearing in her hats. The day Jamie and I brought home our new sports car, a sleek machine that gleamed like a sapphire in the sun, Marlene's eyes had sparkled, but not with joy. She ran her fingers along the hood, her touch almost possessive. "Ava, darling, isn't this a bit much?" she had asked, a slight curl to her lip that wasn't quite a smile. "It's rather ostentatious, don't you think?" Jamie had jumped to my defense, his arm finding its way protectively around my shoulders. "Mom, this is Ava's dream. She's worked hard for it." I had tried to keep the peace, offering a placating smile. "It's not just about the car, Marlene. It's about what it represents. Years of saving, of dreaming. It's achievement." But her response was a scoff, a sound that seemed to echo off the driveway. "Achievement? If you say so, dear. I just hope it doesn't get scratched. You know how these suburbs can be. Not everything that shines stays that way." Her words had hung in the air, heavy with something I couldn't quite place. Was it warning? Jealousy? I had pushed the thought away, not wanting to believe that envy could tarnish our relationship. As days passed, I noticed Marlene's visits became more frequent, her comments more pointed. Jamie, ever the optimist, brushed it off as his mother being her usual self, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. It wasn't until the day our car disappeared that the true depth of Marlene's envy became painfully clear. The emptiness in the driveway was a gaping hole, the absence of our dream a physical weight. When Marlene called, her voice was a siren's call, luring me into the storm of betrayal that had been brewing beneath her feigned affection. "Ava, how careless to leave such a pricey toy out for anyone to take," she had said, her words dripping with a vindictive pleasure that made my blood run cold. The realization hit hard, the knowledge that Marlene's envy had driven her to commit the unthinkable. The sports car wasn't just a vehicle, it was the embodiment of our achievements, and she had stolen it as if to say that our dreams were nothing but playthings for her whims. The envy of a mother-in-law had shattered the quiet suburb, the ripple effects of her actions spreading out to touch every corner of our once peaceful lives. The morning sun had yet to chase away the shadows of dawn when I stepped onto the driveway, a routine farewell on my lips, ready to wish Jamie off to work. But where there should have been the proud silhouette of our sapphire sports car, there was nothing. An inexplicable void greeted me, a gaping maw where our beloved car had been. A chill crept up my spine, the early morning air suddenly heavy, laden with a sense of foreboding. My hands, trembling as if caught in a winter gale, fumbled with my phone. I punched in the numbers to the local police with a growing sense of dread. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice was a lifeline in the thickening fog of my panic. Our car, it's been stolen, I managed to stammer out, the words tasting of disbelief. It was there last night, and now, it's just gone. I could hear the scratching of a pen, the mundane sound a stark contrast to the chaos brewing within me. "Ma'am, please stay on the line. We'll send an officer to your location immediately. Can you give me a description of the vehicle?" As I recounted the details, the reality of the situation sank in. My dream, our dream, had been unceremoniously snatched away in the cover of night. The connection to the dispatcher was a thin thread, a tenuous hold on composure that threatened to snap with each passing second. The phone buzzed with a call-waiting tone, and a glance at the screen showed Marlene's number. "Hold on, there's another call coming in." "It might be important," I told the dispatcher. I switched lines, a part of me naively hoping for a simple explanation, a mistake perhaps. "Marlene?" I inquired, my voice a mixture of hope and rising anxiety. "Hello, Ava," Marlene's voice oozed through the speaker, syrupy and cool. "I guess you can say goodbye to your $100,000 car." Her words were a sledgehammer, shattering the fragile hope that this was all just a terrible misunderstanding. "What did you do, Marlene?" I demanded, my voice sharp, the edges of fear giving way to anger. There was a pause, a hesitation that was unlike her. Then, with a theatrical sigh, she continued, "Oh, Ava, you always did care too much about material things. It's just a car." "Just a car?" I echoed, incredulity lacing my tone. "Marlene, that car was more than just steel and paint. It was a symbol of our hard work. You know that. Why would you take it? Where is it?" A chuckle, cold and mirthless, was her only reply. "All I can say is, things have a way of disappearing around here. You should be more careful with your possessions." I switched back to the dispatcher, my heart racing. "I need to report a theft, and I think I know who took it." My voice was a mix of resolve and a growing thirst for justice. "My mother-in-law just admitted to taking our car." The officers arrived with the efficiency and professionalism that the suburbs rarely needed but were grateful to have. They listened as I recounted the call, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and disbelief. As they took notes, Jamie paced behind me, his usual calm demeanor shattered like the peace of our once quiet morning. "I can't believe this, my own mother," he muttered, his words punctuated by a helplessness that echoed my own. In the hours that followed, the absence of our car became more than a physical loss. It was the disappearance of trust, of family bonds, and of the belief that some lines could never be crossed. The quiet suburb had awakened not to the song of birds but to the discordant melody of betrayal. I stood in the sterile glow of the police station, the hum of fluorescent lights mixing with the muffled voices of duty and distress. My hands were cold, clasped together to stop them from shaking, as I waited for the detective to return. The walls bore witness to countless stories of woe, and now they would absorb mine. Detective Martinez returned, a folder thick with the scent of fresh ink and bad news in his hands. "We found her," he announced without preamble, his voice betraying no emotion. "Found who?" I feigned ignorance, though my heart raced with the knowledge of who he meant. "Your mother-in-law, Mrs. Thompson," he said as he opened the folder and laid out photographs taken just hours ago. There she was, Mil, sitting at a diner with a cup of coffee, and a stack of bills so high it would make a banker blink. How could she? The words escaped my lips, a whisper lost in the buzzing of the station. Detective Martinez offered a look of sympathy that didn't quite reach his eyes. "She's at the precinct now. Sold your car to a local dealership. They had no idea it was stolen." I shook my head, trying to comprehend. "But why?" "That's what we're going to find out," he replied, standing up. "You can come with me if you want to be there for the questioning." I nodded, rising to follow him, my legs stiff as if they too protested this reality. The precinct's interrogation room was colder than the rest of the building, a small box of a space with a table that seemed to hold the weight of the world. Mil sat there, cuffed, her face a mask of something I couldn't quite discern. Was it regret? Fear? It was hard to tell with the woman who had, until today, been an enigma wrapped in suburban banality. "Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice steady though it threatened to break. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine, and for a moment, I saw something akin to sorrow. I just wanted to know what it felt like," she said, her voice a hoarse whisper. "To feel what?" I pressed, needing to understand. "To feel like you, successful, admired, looked up to." Her voice trailed off, and she looked away, her posture deflated. The detective interjected, "You realize you've committed a serious crime, Mrs. Thompson?" Mil's gaze returned to me, pleading. "I never meant for it to go this far. It was just a moment of madness." I leaned forward, the anger and betrayal coalescing into a cold resolve. "And now, because of that moment, you're going to face the consequences." Mil's eyes filled with tears, but they did nothing to quell the fire of my resolve. "Please," she begged, "I know I've wronged you, but I'm still your family." I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor like a gavel, sentencing her. "You can say hello to a $1 million lawsuit," I declared, the words sealing her fate as much as they shattered the last vestige of our familial bond. The room was silent, save for the sound of Mil's quiet sobs and the detective's pen scratching across his notepad. The reckoning had come, not with the fury of a storm, but with the cold finality of a door closing, never to be opened again. The courtroom was a stark arena, a stage set for the drama of justice, where the truth would be stripped bare, for all to see. It was the day of reckoning for Marlene, my mother-in-law, once a figure of whimsical chaos, now the defendant in a suit too somber for her vibrant personality. I sat rigid on the hard wooden bench, a plaintiff poised between the twin pillars of anxiety and determination. My attorney, Mr. Hughes, patted my hand reassuringly as we awaited the judge's entrance. "Remember, Ava, just stick to the facts. Let her actions speak for themselves," he murmured. I nodded, though my stomach twisted into knots. The facts were cold, hard things, but the emotions they stirred within me were anything but. The bailiff's voice cut through the murmurs of the gallery. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Andrews." We stood in unison, a wave of formality washing over the room as the judge took her seat. "Please be seated. Let's proceed with the case of Thompson versus Thompson." The air was thick with anticipation as Mr. Hughes presented our case. Exhibit A, the callous phone call. Exhibit B, the CCTV footage. Exhibit C, Marlene's bank records showing a cascade of debts. Marlene's attorney, a young man with a sharp suit and sharper eyes, tried to paint a picture of desperation, of a woman pushed to the brink by society's unforgiving nature. But it was Marlene's turn on the stand that everyone awaited, a moment of human frailty amid the legal posturing. "Mrs. Thompson, can you explain these gambling debts?" Mr. Hughes asked, his voice echoing in the hushed courtroom. Marlene wrung her hands, her gaze flickering to mine before settling on the wooden grain of the witness stand. "I was trying to win it all back," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The money I lost, the time. I thought if I could just get one big win, I could make everything right again." "And you thought selling Ava's car would solve your problems?" Mr. Hughes pressed on. "I didn't. I wasn't thinking." "It was a mistake," Marlene faltered, the mask of defiance crumbling. From the gallery, a soft sob broke the silence. It was Jamie, torn between his roles as a supportive spouse and a betrayed son. "Marlene," I found myself speaking, not as the wrong daughter-in-law, but as a woman seeing another's world unravel. "Why didn't you come to us for help?" Her eyes met mine, and in them, I saw the raw pain of pride and regret. "Because I couldn't bear it," she confessed. "You had everything together, and I was falling apart." The truth was a dam breaking, the waters of hidden grief and shame flooding the courtroom. Marlene had been drowning, not in the physical sense, but in a sea of her own making, her pride a leaden weight. The judge's gavel brought us back to the present, to the legalities that would dictate Marlene's future. Given the evidence presented, this court has no choice but to rule in favor of the plaintiff, Judge Andrews declared, her voice the final note in the symphony of justice. The gallery exhaled, a collective release of tension, as Marlene was led away, her fate sealed by her own hand. The unveiling had been more than just the exposure of a crime, it had laid bare the human heart, with all its complexities and contradictions. And as I left the courtroom, the weight of the day heavy upon my shoulders, I knew that the story of Marlene, of our family, would be a cautionary tale, a reminder of how easily the fabric of our lives could unravel. The dust had settled, and the courtroom drama that had riveted our small town had finally drawn to a close. Marlene's sentence was handed down, and with it, the expectation that life would return to normal. But normalcy had shifted, and in its place was a new reality that seemed alien to the quiet suburbia I once knew. I found myself sitting on the porch, the cool evening breeze carrying whispers of the day's events. Jamie sat beside me, his presence a silent pillar of strength amidst the turmoil. "Ava," he began, his voice a low hum in the quiet of the twilight, "I'm so sorry. For everything she put you through. I placed a hand over his, squeezing it gently. "Jamie, you have nothing to apologize for. We were both blindsided by this." He shook his head, his gaze lost to the horizon. "But it was my mother, my family. It's hard not to feel responsible in some way." I sighed, the weight of the entire ordeal pressing against my chest. "Family doesn't come with a manual, love. We just do the best we can with what we have." We sat in silence, each lost in our reflections until the whispering leaves seemed to urge us to speak our truths. "I keep thinking about the last thing she said in court," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "I just wanted to feel like I mattered." "That's what she said." It's been echoing in my mind ever since. Jamie's grip tightened. "I know. It's been echoing in mine, too. She lost her way, Ava. She got caught up in wanting more and forgot what she already had." The moon hung above, a silent witness to our confessions. It cast a silver glow, painting our world in shades of gray where once I only saw black and white. "You know, the strangest thing is," Jamie continued, "I always thought our lives were too mundane for her taste. But maybe it was the stability she craved after all." "That's just it, isn't it?" I mused. "We strive for excitement, for something extraordinary, but when life throws us these curveballs, we realize the value of the ordinary days we took for granted." A dog barked in the distance, a comforting sound that spoke of normal life outside our bubble of sorrow. "I think I've learned something from all this," I said, turning to face Jamie. "I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, nor does it excuse the hurt caused. But it's a step towards healing, for both of us." Jamie nodded, a slow, deliberate movement. "Yeah. And I've learned that even though we can't choose our family, we can choose how we let their actions affect us. We can choose to move forward, even when it feels like we're stuck in the past. The night wrapped around us, a cloak of solace as we contemplated the future. There was much to rebuild, trust to be mended, and wounds to be healed. But in this moment of quiet reflection, there was also hope. Hope that with time, the echoes of the past would fade into whispers, and our lives would find a new rhythm, perhaps not as innocent as before, but wiser and more resilient. "We'll get through this, Ava." "Together," Jamie said, his voice firm with resolve. I leaned into him, finding comfort in his certainty. "Together," I echoed. The reflection had brought pain, but in its wake, it also promised the possibility of growth. As the stars twinkled above, like distant beacons of light, I knew that the story of the stolen car would always be a part of us, but it wouldn't define us. We were more than a single chapter of chaos, we were a narrative still being written, each day a fresh page